My name is Claire Wittmann. I'm 29. Last year, for 6 months, I lived in my parents' guest room, the one with the stiff twin bed, peeling wallpaper, and a closet that still smelled faintly of Christmas decorations. It was never meant to be permanent. I didn't even unpack most of my boxes. I kept telling myself I'd leave as soon as things settled. My mother, Susan, seemed to have other plans. When I moved back home, I had just been laid off from a small nonprofit tech firm. Budget cuts, they said. For 3 years, I helped community centers digitize their services, scheduling online appointments for seniors, helping veterans navigate benefits. I was proud of that work, but once the funding vanished, so did my job. I applied everywhere: remote jobs, contract work, even roles far below my qualifications. I picked up freelance gigs when I could, mostly web design and tech support for local businesses. But the market was brutal. My savings evaporated faster than I imagined. Rent in upstate New York didn't help. Eventually, I loaded up my hatchback and drove back to the same quiet cul-de-sac I grew up on. Dad, Harold, greeted me like I was an unexpected overnight guest, polite, reserved, a quick pat on the back. Mom offered a tight smile and a list of chores. The thermostat was glitchy again. The printer jammed every third page. The Wi-Fi mysteriously died every night around 8. I didn't complain. I set up new email filters, installed antivirus software, updated their budgeting app, strengthened their online banking security. I even caught a fraudulent charge on Dad's debit card before he noticed. They never asked, they simply assumed I'd handle it. Susan wasn't cruel in any obvious way. She didn't yell or slam doors. Instead, each morning she wiped down the already clean kitchen like she was scrubbing away any trace of me. She folded laundry with sharp precision. When she passed my room, she paused just long enough to let the silence say everything. Eric, my younger brother, showed up maybe twice a month. He's 25, lives in Manhattan, and works in finance, or so he says when he introduces himself. The moment he stepped through the door, Mom lit up. "There's my star," she'd gush. "You look like you've lost weight." Meanwhile, I was in the corner reconnecting the Wi-Fi router, again. They never said it aloud, but I felt it. I wasn't home. I was a shadow passing through, a silent reminder of something they preferred not to acknowledge. What I didn't know then was that the person they barely noticed, the one folding laundry, fixing passwords, making dinner, was the very person holding their fragile little ecosystem together. They wouldn't see that until I was gone. It happened on a Sunday, the kind Mom used to call family days, back when we had placemats and matching silverware. She made baked ziti, Eric's favorite, not mine. Eric arrived in a pressed shirt, a shiny watch on his wrist. He kissed Mom on the cheek, tossed his keys in the bowl like he hadn't ignored her calls all month. Eric Wittmann, 4 years younger, but somehow always treated as if he were the golden child. He worked in Midtown for a private investment firm, always dropping some new app or crypto term into conversation. Susan hung on every word. I set the table, careful not to chip the one dish already cracked down the middle. When I finally sat down, Eric looked at me as though I'd wandered into the wrong house. Dinner began as it always did, Mom asking Eric about work. Eric performing humility. I focused on my food, eyes down. Then, out of nowhere, Susan turned to me, her tone breezy. "So, have you been applying to any real jobs lately?" I froze. Just the day before, I had told her about 2 interviews I had lined up. I'd even shown her a cover letter. But none of that mattered, not when Eric was around. Before I could answer, Eric cut in, eyes still on his plate. "At some point, it stops being bad luck and starts being bad choices." I swallowed my words, and my pride. The silence that followed was electric, but only for me. They carried on, laughing at something I didn't catch. I got up, carried my plate to the kitchen, and finished eating at the counter, my back to them. Behind me, I heard it all. "Needs to grow up, can't baby her forever, embarrassing." They didn't bother whispering. They didn't need to. What hurt most wasn't what they said. It was how easily the words came. How comfortable they were saying them. Like they'd rehearsed. That night, I lay in bed, eyes open. The cracked dish still sat in the sink, untouched. And I started to wonder, what exactly had I become in this house? The next morning was quiet. Not the gentle kind of quiet that feels like a soft blanket, no, this was the heavy, smoky quiet that lingers after something has already burned down. I was in the sunroom, hunched over my laptop, putting the finishing touches on a website redesign for a local bakery. They had a new spring menu launching. I had just uploaded the image carousel when I heard the sound, heels clicking on hardwood, quick and sharp. Susan appeared in the doorway. My mother had a way of folding her arms that turned them into barricades. She never knocked. She didn't believe in it. "I need to talk to you," she said. I looked up. "Okay. You need to start paying rent." I'd heard this line before, usually tossed in between complaints about the electric bill or how I loaded the dishwasher, so I gave her the same answer I always did. "I will. I told you, once this project wraps, I'll send you something." "They're paying you?" she asked, though she already knew. "Yes." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "I'm not talking about soon. I mean now, today." I blinked. "You want me to write you a check with money I haven't even received yet?" She didn't flinch. "No, I want you to grow up." Then it came, clean, sharp, almost offhand. "You're just a leech, Claire, living off us. It's gone on long enough." That word, leech, landed like a slap. She said it as if it were a medical fact, as if I'd always been that. Before I could answer, she turned and disappeared down the hall. When she returned, she was dragging a duffel bag I hadn't seen since college. She dropped it at my feet. "Go leech somewhere else." I stared at it. Blue canvas, my name still stitched on the side. I zipped it up, slid in my laptop and charger, grabbed my toothbrush. No yelling, no scene. Outside, the sky was a shocking, indifferent blue. The driveway looked too clean, too bright. I left without saying goodbye. No one followed, no one watched. As I walked to my car, it hit me, I hadn't just been pushed out, I'd been erased, and no one inside that house seemed worried about what would happen next. They should have been. I didn't have a plan, just a duffel bag, a laptop, and a tightness in my chest I couldn't quite name yet. The first night, I stayed with Lucas, an old college friend who still called me Wittmann like we were back doing group projects. He gave me the pull-out couch and a pair of clean socks. No pity, no questions, just enough space to breathe. A few days later, I moved into the spare room at Ava's, my ex-girlfriend, the kind of person who made tea first, then asked if you wanted to talk. We hadn't spoken in months, but when I texted her, she replied with one word: "Come." That week felt like drifting through lives I had almost forgotten were mine. Ava worked late shifts at a community health clinic, so the apartment was quiet. I filled the silence with freelance gigs, websites, repair jobs, anything that showed up. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I was fixing things, not just for others, for myself, too. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message on LinkedIn. A recruiter from a nonprofit startup had found my portfolio through a project I'd done for an art professor months back. They needed someone for a digital systems role, remote, full-time, benefits. I interviewed in Ava's kitchen, wearing a blazer over sweatpants. 2 days later, they offered me the job. It wasn't a big Silicon Valley salary, but it was enough. Enough to sign a lease on a studio apartment with creaky floors, a fridge that hummed too loud, and sunlight that spilled in just right each morning. That first night, I sat on the floor with takeout lo mein and a half-charged phone. No lectures, no pointed silences, no one telling me who I wasn't. Everything around me was mine, the floor, the ceiling, even the air, and no one could throw me out. 3 weeks after moving in, I was at my makeshift desk, really just a wobbly table, finishing a grant reporting dashboard. The radiator hissed, the overhead light flickered. I didn't care, broken or not, it was mine. That's when my phone buzzed. Missed call, Harold Wittmann, my father. I hadn't heard from him since the night I left. No texts, no how are you. I watched the screen go dark, then it lit up again. Another call, same name. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text. "Claire, why is the bank account frozen?" For a moment, I didn't understand, then I remembered. Back home, before I became a leech, Dad had asked me to modernize their finances. He hated paper statements and phone menus. He gave me access to their joint account so I could set up mobile banking, automate bills, link tax software, and manage recovery options. I was the secondary admin on every system, not to spend, just to help. They'd never removed me. If something triggered a lockout, too many failed logins, suspicious activity, they needed me to verify their identity. I typed back, "Ask the leech." No emoji, no explanation, just that. Within an hour, My phone exploded, 5 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 1 text from Susan. This isn't funny, Claire, call your father back, we can't pay the credit card. Are you really doing this after everything we've done for you? I didn't answer. I wasn't being cruel, I wasn't playing a game. But for the first time in years, I had leverage, and I wasn't about to waste it. They showed up on a Thursday. I heard the knock before I saw them. My building echoes, footsteps sound slower, heavier, waiting. I looked through the peephole and paused. Susan stood there, clutching her purse to her chest like a shield. Harold beside her, wearing a jacket too thin for the weather and a tie that looked like he'd tied it in the car. I opened the door. If you're here to yell, don't, I said. They didn't. They stepped inside wordlessly, looking around my tiny studio as if they couldn't believe this was my life now. It was small, yes, but it was clean. Sunlight streamed in, catching on the stack of papers scattered across my desk. No one spoke. A full minute ticked by before Susan cleared her throat. Her voice was softer than I remembered. We need your help. 3 weeks ago, she'd called me a leech and tossed my bag at my feet. Now she stood in the middle of my world, careful not to touch a single thing. Harold tried to explain. Something about the bank, taxes, Eric trying to help but only making it worse. I already knew. I'd seen the alerts. We missed the mortgage payment, Susan said quietly. There are late fees. I looked at her. She didn't look angry, she looked exhausted. That sounds awful, I said. You must feel really stuck. She nodded, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm sorry. There was no lecture this time, no excuses, just 2 words. Harold echoed her, slower, almost hesitant. We didn't realize how much you were doing. I believed them, partly. I think they didn't want to know. There's a difference. They asked if I would come back, reset the systems, fix it all. They offered to pay me. They promised things would be different. I shook my head. I'll help, I said, but I'm not coming back. And I meant it. We spent 2 hours at my desk. Harold squinted at the screen. Susan hovered, arms folded, silent. I walked them through each step, resetting logins, verifying identity, relinking tax software. I had to call support twice, once for a 2-factor code they ignored, and once to unlock the HSA account Eric had accidentally flagged as fraudulent. Susan said little. Harold grumbled at every security question. This is ridiculous, he kept muttering, but he answered them all. When it was over, I leaned back. I'll send a document outlining everything, I said. After that, I'm out. Susan frowned. Out? No more admin access, I clarified. No more calls at midnight. No more Claire, the Wi-Fi's down. You'll have to figure it out yourselves. Maybe ask Eric. Harold didn't argue, he just nodded, slowly. They stood, gathered their things. No hugs, I didn't offer one. After the door closed, I sat down at my desk and opened Google Drive. There it was. Banking for Mom and Dad, do not delete. I hovered over it. Delete. Confirm? Yes. For a few days, silence settled in. I almost believed it might last, but families don't really let go. They just find new ways to rewrite the story. It started with a Facebook message from Aunt Cheryl. Hey sweetie, heard you moved out. That's so great. Your mom mentioned you've been distant lately. Everything okay? Then a screenshot from Trevor, my cousin, showing the family group chat. Susan had written. Claire's changed. Ever since she got that new job, she's been cold. I don't recognize her anymore. All I did was ask for help, and she acted like I betrayed her. Then Eric emailed me, 5 paragraphs, after months of silence. Look, I know there's been tension, but Mom and Dad aren't perfect. Maybe you could try being more understanding. We all have rough patches. Doesn't mean the world is against you. Let's get coffee soon. I didn't reply. Because they didn't understand. This wasn't about one fight or one word. It was about all the times I'd been invisible, until they needed me. A month later, I left New York. My company offered a relocation bonus to join the West Coast expansion. I took it without a second thought. Portland felt like exhaling. The new apartment was small, but the light was gentle, and no one in the building knew my last name. I joined a local tech meetup, made friends. Once a week, I volunteered at a senior center, helping people navigate email, online banking, and 2-factor authentication. One afternoon, I sat beside Marlene, an older woman struggling to reset her Medicare password. She laughed, embarrassed. You're so patient, she said. I smiled. Patience is all I've ever had. That night, I wrote one final email. Subject, update. Hi Mom and Dad. Just wanted to let you know I'll be relocating to Portland for work. I've removed myself from all financial systems and accounts. I won't be available for tech help going forward. I hope this new chapter gives us all some peace. Claire. No reply, not even a period. But this time, the silence wasn't punishment, it was freedom. I sat at my desk, opened a blank document, and wrote the first sentence of something new, something that belonged entirely to me. I don't need an apology, I just wonder, if I disappeared, would anyone notice I was the one keeping things running? What about you? Have you ever walked away? And no one asked why.